Hi, I'm Joshua Farnsworth, and welcome to the Wood and Shop Traditional Woodworking School here in Earlysville, Virginia. In this video, my friend Tom Callisto, one of our instructors, will show how to put a wood finish on a new saw handle if you make or refurbish a saw handle.
Just trying to get some of the last little scratches out of the saw handle here. Been working on it, and there's lots of ways to do it. I've got a little small scraper which works beautifully. Really flexible. I think it's like 15 thou steel. But luckily, being a saw maker, I have plenty of options regarding saw plates, making scrapers. I've got a bunch of these guys, and this is really nice for finishing the final details. Also, for getting in little nooks and crannies of the round ones, chainsaw files work great. And one of my favorites is just a simple smooth cut half round file. But now that I've got pretty much everything kind of smoothed out the way I want it, now I'm just going to talk briefly about finishes. What I want to do before I go too far with the finishing, or before I go too far with putting the rest of the saw together, I do want to finish this area where the saw plate's going to be. And the reason why I do that is just because eventually we're going to put the saw nuts back in and tighten everything down, and I want the saw nuts to be perfectly flat with those faces. If I put a finish on the sides right now, I'll be taking most of that finish away. But I do want to apply finish around here just so I can avoid getting it onto the saw plate when I'm doing the final finishing. Now regarding finishes, there are lots of options. Lately I've been using a lot of the just basic wipe-on polyurethane. It's really easy to apply. It makes for a very durable finish and makes an attractive finish as well. Something as simple as Danish oil, or one of the antique oils, or even just basic linseed oil. All good stuff. It'll do a good job. All we're really looking for is just something to make the handle a little prettier and give it some protection. I'm not looking for some high gloss finish, but now with that said, some of my earlier ones, I used to use a lot of basic shellac and just pat on a couple of coats of shellac and a couple of coats of paste wax. And it makes a really durable, attractive finish. It feels good in the hand. And I guess that's half of it, just something that feels good in the hand. And wax on all these finishes, if you come back and do a final coat of wax, it will really feel silky smooth and you won't raise any blisters in your hand. So lots of options for finishing. The one thing I would recommend though, if you're using the oil finishes, is just make sure you properly dispose of all the rags. If you got a big sopping wet rag full of finish, when it starts to kick off, it'll what's called exotherm. It'll start creating its own heat and potentially catch on fire. So read the back of the box, or the bottle rather, and just pay attention to their directions, or put them outside on bricks or in a tub of water. I'm going to go use a little bit of the wipe-on polyurethane for this one. It's a really easy finish to apply. It dries fairly quickly, and it creates a good durable coat. So just go a little small rag and just want to, basically I'm just going to pat it on. And it's going to, first of all, you'll really see where it just starts popping the grain. It'll look really pretty as well. So let me just get a little more on there. And that quarter sawn beach, you can really see it start to come alive a little bit. And just try to squeeze a little bit from the rag in a little nooks and crannies. And then we'll come back. That's probably enough for the time being. Just one light coat And this way you don't need to get so close to the saw plate next time when you're finishing up the rest of the way. But you definitely see it really pops that grain. If you did a good job sanding and scraping, should have a nice smooth finish. And it looks sharp too. All right, this is probably good enough right here. What I'm going to do now is set the handle to the side and let this dry for a little bit. And then eventually after I take care of the saw plate, we're going to sharpen and set the saw plate, and we're going to assemble the entire saw together, put our saw nuts in, and we're going to basically level the saw nuts out, sand them all down flush with the side of the handle. And then after that, we'll come back and do the final finishing on it, and we'll have a finished saw. All right, we've flushed everything up with the face of the handle. Everything's looking good. And I did actually give the brass parts itself a little extra rubbing with a little 4/0 steel wool just to brighten those up a little bit. The wood doesn't really need that to make it shine or anything, but the brass looks a little better when you polish it up a little further. And just like we did before, we're going to wipe the last coat, a couple of coats of polyurethane on there, and our saw will be done. We've had our test cut, it cuts well. Now just for the final part, we're going to try to make it look nice and pretty. And if you get a little on the blade, it's not that big a deal. Oftentimes I'll come back with a little mineral spirits and fix that up a little bit, but flip it around, get the other side for you. And it's just handy, just be able to let it dry in the vise like that, being held on by the saw plate. Oftentimes, whenever if I'm making a bunch of saws all at once, I'll oftentimes put them in like hand screws and just set them around the shop and let them dry that way. Get a little extra in the nooks and crannies. And that is all there is to it. And generally, I mean, you're not looking for a high gloss finish here, or you may be, I don't know. Generally, when I'm doing like tool handles, I'm looking for utility. I'm looking for something that's going to keep the grease and grime from my hands from transferring to the saw handle. So I'm just like maybe 2 or 3 coats is all I'm looking for with the poly. And then I'll come back, give it a real light buffing with some, either the abrasive pad, non-woven abrasive pads, or maybe some 4/0 steel wool, and then add a couple of coats of wax to it. And you got a handle with a finish on it that'll last for a long time, be nice and comfortable in your hand, and hopefully enjoy using this saw.
If you're interested in learning traditional woodworking, come take a class at our school in Earlysville, Virginia. You can also visit our website at woodandshop.com, where you'll find a bunch of free woodworking lessons, workshop tours, and our very popular tool buying guides. And make sure you subscribe to our free newsletter to get our latest articles and videos. Enjoy!